used to.
Sure, and that's why we're here, to give out information.
Correct information, yes.
As promised at the beginning, that's what we're here to do. And majority masonry is inside the diagram. So, you know, majority masonry. Okay. Can anything be done to stop the build to rent section from taking place? So, I mean, I guess the answer is yes. If somebody wanted to spend $20 million and buy the property, I think that's something that could be done. But at the end of the day, the developer has the authority to do it. They've been thoughtful in not increasing density because it is the back of your section. Putting something that's highly dense would be a real problem for you all, but instead it's single-family residential use. That's what was contemplated by this community. That's what's being built in this community. So,
Can you say that the first part again? It was the back of the.
Yeah, sections 11 and 12.
Say that first part again.
So, increasing density on a main thoroughfare, if people had to drive through your community to go to sections 11 and 12, and you had a lot of additional multifamily traffic on a main thoroughfare, that tends to increase traffic, increase consternation. So these thoroughfares were built with this number of homes in mind as opposed to the higher density multifamily.
Why, I have a question. Why wasn't this mentioned when we were building and buying our house?
All right, so I said I was going to take a break for questions, and somebody else waited diligently and patiently, so she's going to hold, I'm going to hold her question. She's from the line, but certainly I got maybe 8 more questions here, so let's just go ahead and power through this, but you're second in line. All right? Actually third, okay, fair enough. All right. Are the built homes a separate neighborhood as part of the homeowner numbers? So they are section 11 and 12. They are part of the HOA, and Great Gulf is the member. So the folks who buy these or are renting these homes, they are not voting members of the HOA. So they get to pay HOA dues by way of paying their lease payment that has HOA dues built into it. Great Gulf contributes just as every home is going to contribute to the HOAs, but they will not have voting rights. They won't be able to run for the board because they won't be members of the HOA. So it's a little bit of taxation without representation, but that's what they signed up for. And if they don't like it, they cannot rent from these folks. But ultimately, you're getting the benefit of what was it, 120 homes? 173 homes. You're getting the benefit, and the great news is, Great Gulf, as you mentioned, is a company that is pretty large, owns a home builder. They write their check for HOA dues in a single check. So you're not having to go and have 173 people that may or may not pay their HOA dues. It is a great capital infusion at the very beginning of the year because you're getting 173 HOA dues paid at the same time. So that's something that's actually certainly a benefit. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do we know the qualifications of build-to-rent renters? So I'm not going to get into the extraordinarily nuanced areas of federal housing law and what folks can and can't do in terms of discriminating based on housing, but I will tell you this. Folks who rent, they have less protections than folks who buy, and folks who rent from a company have even less protection than people who just rent from someone who happened to buy a couple homes and is now using it to supplement their income. And so Great Gulf does a couple of checks, and I'll let Matt talk about that.
Sure. So in addition to doing a credit check, which is what your lender did, we also do a background check. So not failing a background check will exclude them from living in our neighborhood. And so I think that's obviously a difference than a homeowner, right? There's no background. Your lender doesn't run a background check, so we run a background check and then a stringent credit check.
What does that mean on a background check? I mean, do they have any felonies they can't buy, they can't rent?
I knew you were in trouble.
You damn right.
You're now 3rd and 4th, so you're dropping in the list. We'll talk about it in a second.
Okay.
Is there a limit to the number of families that can reside in one home? So the code says 2 per bedroom, and of course you have single-family residential restrictions. Now, Single-family residential, that's subject to a number of Texas case law opinions that interpret that. So, you know, just like they're not running around and seeing if you've got grandma living with you and kicking her out, single family doesn't necessarily mean you're single nuclear family, but if you have multiple families living in the home, that is a violation of the deed restrictions, it's a violation of the lease, and it's probably a violation of the code, and it will be enforced. You know, not just as an aside, Great Gulf wants to keep these homes in good condition. Having people that exceed the lease tends to increase wear and tear, so it's just bad business. I'm not speaking for Matt, but I know the industry, and I would imagine that's accurate, right?
That's very accurate.
Okay. Can we ask for a copy of the renter's application? And what is the process to ensure the applicant can afford the home? Well, there must be a credit check, but no, you don't get a copy of the renter's application. Just like I'm not gonna give Great Gulf a copy of all your information that's personal, you're not gonna get a copy of the renter's application. But again, this company is not in the business of losing money, not in the business of renting to people who can't afford, or are gonna commit crimes at the property. That is bad for business, and so, you know, Great Gulf is going to be doing a heightened level of checking as opposed to someone that just bought in your community a second home that is renting it out, and we have no idea who they're renting to. We have no idea what checks they're doing. We have no idea if they're having multiple people in the house, but we do have that with Great Gulf because they're a corporate owner. What is the cost of the build to rent? We discussed a moment ago, but market value, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The website states their homes are Section 8 housing. Same website? Was this Section 8 part of the presentation, or where'd this come from?
It said, it was low income housing, is what all the information that we were given said, low income
Looks like it.
housing. So,
So I don't like the term low income, and I think we clarified that it's market value, but it's starter homes. But no, it's not Section 8 housing, period.
Looks
A whole
like it.
host of bills working their way through the legislature about whether you can even ask about Section 8 housing, but the fact of the matter is, no, it's not Section 8 housing. So, I guess we don't need to discuss the wisdom of the legislature and whether we can ask about Section 8 housing. Will tenants for the build to rent section be found quickly, or will the homes sit empty? Matt, I imagine you all are not spending money, millions of dollars to have homes sit empty. That seems like a poor business model, but I'll let you go ahead and talk about that.
Obviously, our goal is to, when we finish a home, find a family to move in.
Okay, and, so this is not your first build to rent project, right?
No, we have 20 build to rent projects across all of the Southeast.
And, what has been, have they sat for a long time, or have they rented up pretty quickly?
In this environment, they're actually renting up quite quickly.
All right, well, that got us to the end of the questions of folks who asked questions ahead of time, the rule followers. And so, now, we're gonna get to the questions for the folks that, I'm just gonna assume the pressing questions came up because of this, but, if you didn't have a chance to answer your questions, we got a few minutes left, so, ma'am, you waited very patiently. I think I'm trying to look at you, I'm blind in my right eye, so I think I'm looking at you, yeah, you,
Alright.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but, if I'm not, I apologize for talking to the air, and I apologize to who I'm looking at, so, ma'am, go ahead.
Actually, I have.
No,
No,
okay.
not me? Oh, sorry.
Third row, has a tattoo on her left arm. I can see, I'm blind in one eye, but I can see with the other one, so, yes, tattoo on the left arm.
Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
my thing is, I know that the renters are supposed to stay, you know, with all the rules that we have and the property code, blah, 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 blah. But, if they do violate these things, y'all aren't going straight to the resident of that home then, and like, so we get a violation and it gets fixed immediately, cause the variance, blah, blah, blah. So you have to go to Gulf Coast, and then you have to communicate through them, and then you have to get them to communicate to the residents. And I think that's also like a big thing, like, y'all are trying to say that it's great that y'all have that, but us knowing how it is to communicate with a larger company has not been great. So I'm like, to me, I know that there's gonna be a lot of issues in maybe us reporting that there are violations and those things not getting fixed appropriately or in a timely manner, because you are having to chase down so many extra people just to get something fixed. So is that how it's gonna be, or do y'all have something like a process set up where it'll be more straight to the residents,
Yeah.
or?
But first and foremost, he said it, but he said it very quickly. They have their own manager that's gonna be on site that's different from the management company that you all
So
have.
it's just an extra person?
No.
It's
This-
actually even a lower immediate person that property manager has a maintenance staff, and if there's something that is a HOA violation needs to be fixed, that manager tells that maintenance person to go fix it.
Right then and there.
Right then and there, there's no, it
So
doesn't
there's
even.
no resident fixing it, the company
We
will
have
fix the issues?
it's, the
Okay.
homes are professionally managed from a management company, and that has a maintenance staff.
Okay.
So it's unlike the HOA asking the homeowner to fix it, and then the homeowner has to either contract to fix it or fix it themselves. We have a maintenance staff
Okay.
that will fix it.
Okay.
So, and that property manager will be on site. So I would posit that the first, if there's an item, then the first call is to the property manager, and it gets fixed that day. So you don't have to go to the HOA and then go that process, which in my opinion is a longer process than you're gonna have with us.
For sure.
Okay.
Matt from Four Star.
Yes, hi everyone. So Matt with Four-Star. I have a good amount of experience with HOAs, running HOAs, setting up HOAs. And one of the things I always had a challenge with is if there was an owner who was violating the HOA guidelines, and it took a notice to the owner to get them to respond. And if you had an owner who didn't want to respond, you couldn't do anything as an HOA really in front. Then you had to do a second letter. And then you had to maybe get an attorney involved. It could go on for months at a time. And then dues would pile up, and then residents would just get upset. Why aren't you doing anything? Well, it's because that person owns that property. I can't just enter that person's property and do something. There's a lengthy legal process I have to go through as the HOA just to even get to that. Things could go 6 months at the same time too. And that's where Great Gulf, they own the property. So if there's an issue and their interest is in keeping the property.
I can't enter the property, I own the house.
Matt can go and take something immediately if they so desire. They don't have to go through the whole process. So that is a difference. That is going to be helpful to.
There's a bill right now, it's gonna require 4 notices and 6 months before you can take legal action that's working its way through the legislature right now.
With
So,
homeowners,
let me just
as opposed
clarify,
to renters.
I can enter or my maintenance staff, which is really the more important person, right? Not me, but my maintenance staff can go and fix anything that needs to be fixed.
They actually have a lot more flexibility and teeth in the ability to make sure that their renters are within the guidelines of what's required, as opposed to an HOA with a build for sale, with a homeowner, as Matt just said. Most of the time it goes through, we send the notice, you have to wait X number of days, then you can send a second notice, and then we can send X number of days, then you can assess a fine. And then if they don't pay that fine, then you can get the attorney. It's a very lengthy process. Which
Sure.
sounds like it's getting even longer, potentially, so.
Yep. I put my kids through college, all these lengthy processes that the legislature needs to implement.
I know there's other people, I just need to be in
Were you
line.
number 2? Who was number 2? You in the back? Yes, ma'am.
What you guys have just described reiterates what my point was, in that either you're misrepresenting or you truly don't understand how it will affect our property values. Because when we talk about a decrease in property values, we're not just talking about the flowers that are gonna be on the driveway and if the lawn gets cut or not, but the interior and the structure of the home, how these people are taking care of the property. Because when we talk about property values, we're talking about square footage, price per square foot, and what we can resell our property for. And so, what matters is what the neighborhood properties sell for. When I try to resell my home, people are gonna pay attention to what the other properties in the neighborhood sell for.
Oh, yeah,
Not just
this-
what they look like from the outside.
Yeah, these folks are definitely in tune with what market value is. It's just the market data has not borne out what you're saying. Build-to-rent communities have not impacted the ability of people to sell their homes for a higher value. This is not the first build-to-rent community in the country. It's now becoming quite commonplace. And so, I hear what you're saying, but the interior of the home, I mean, the square footage, the plans are talking about, they're not building tiny homes. They're building,
Yeah, they have to
I know,
adhere
but
to
it
the
comes down,
guidelines.
it's so simple though, it's simple economics, because it comes down to what someone is willing to pay for a home, right? What someone is willing to pay for a home. If we're all telling you that we're willing to pay less per square foot for a home that has a build-to-rent home next to it, that drops the price. We are the purchasers. We are the people who buy homes. That drops the value of a home.
She's right.
So the number one, indicator of property's value is the school system.
No, it's what someone is willing to pay.
You're right.
That's what makes a
It
price
is,
of
but
a
I'm saying,
home.
if a home, two exact homes, whichever one's in a better school system is gonna command a higher price.
So I guess to elaborate on her question is, has there been an actual study done on how our home values will be affected, okay, let me finish, as it compares to other similar communities that have previously not had a build-to-rent, added the build-to-rent? Have there been actual studies done that y'all have conducted to compare the home values? Because it's, how do you say it won't affect it if you don't have a study to back it up?
well, so again, this is not the, you seem like you wanna say something.
Well, I was just gonna say,
Well, we want their study.
Before you do,
I reckon.
so again, this is not the first build-to-rent community, but, something I did go back and look at was your deed restrictions prior to the build-to-rent community being proposed, the build-to-rent section being proposed. Your leasing restrictions were not robust. So folks could buy here and lease out. They could buy second homes here and lease out all day long. Now you actually have some restrictions on leasing, and it's going to be very, very limited now. But I just, if people buying homes and leasing homes was a concern for you purchasing your home, then there are communities in Texas that have much stricter leasing rules in place to prevent that from happening than what you had in Fairwater.
No.
And so I'm trying to understand how that influenced your decision to buy your home when you didn't actually have restrictions, but now you actually will.
Because it's an entire community, and that still didn't actually answer my question. Has there been a study done to compare our community to a similar community before and after adding the build-to-rent section?
There's been
I
no
don't
Because
know.
study.
it's hard to say
Oh,
the
no,
next
no,
sentence.
no. I heard your question. There's been no study commission. Matt, what did you want to say?
Oh, what I was gonna say is, I live in Dallas. I live in a HOA community, and unbeknownst to me and our residents, the developer built two high-rise, apartment buildings. And all of my neighbors had the exact same concerns that you have, and these were unplanned, so the infrastructure was not put in place for it. The school was not designed for it, all of those things. And the home values in my house that I live in have continued to go up, and why? Because the elementary school in my neighborhood is an A+ rated school.
So they're building a new school that our school will be zoned to. So if half of our new neighbors from this build-to-rent community are in this new school, and they're rotating out every 3 years, that is going to reflect on the test scores for that school. So then our school that we're zoned to is not gonna be an A+ school, because kids are rotating out every 3 years. So they're not getting consistent learning in that same school. So if you're basing it off the schools, we're getting a brand new school that we're going to all be zoned for elementary, and that's where learning starts, and that's where an important base is built. So saying that the school is what's the most important thing to our value is kind of hard to say when we're gonna get a new school and then half the students might be rotating.
But if you as a parent decide to leave where you're living and move into a community specifically because of the good school system, you're an engaged parent. And if you're an engaged parent, that's the number one, one of the top reasons why student success is in the engagement of the parents. And so the parents have made a decision to move into a community with a good school system. So I would say that, and that's, again, the neighborhood I live in is a great school system. That's the reason why we live there, and that's why everybody that wants to be in that school system has to take an active role in doing something to get into that school system, and that shows parents' involvement and their commitment to their child's education. And I would say that's going to influence the test scores positively because you have engaged parents.
Sir in the hat, who's waited very patiently, you have 2 questions. Yes, sir.
I'll probably have more than that, but
Well, you get 2 now, then I'm gonna move back over to here.
no, I would say, I can't speak for everybody, but I would say that at least 90-something% of the people, none of them would have bought in this neighborhood if they had a house that looked like this being built next to their house. I guarantee you I wouldn't have. That's a shady deal by D.R. Horton. As far as people leasing homes, that always happens, but it's sporadic. It's not a whole army of them that are leasing all in one spot. I think that's quite trashy, actually. And I think it's shameful.
I see, I don't know what you're holding up there. Okay.
It's a plan, everybody, these floor plans for the homes.
Isn't that what you're giving out at the front, what they're giving out
Yeah.
at the door?
Yeah,
I mean, that looks pretty.
I just can't see it, so I don't.
Well, you'll see it, and then drive and look at the other houses in the neighborhood. They look nothing like this.
I'll bring you one, they're right there.
I don't, ma'am, you don't need to. All right, that was a comment, so.
No, but my question is,
Yes, sir.
why isn't D.R. Horton mentioning this when they're selling the homes up front? Hey, we bought too much land, we're gonna put in a build-to-rent section because it's gonna bail us out of too many homes that we invested when the economy goes down. We can't sell them as fast as we were selling them earlier.
Okay, so I can speak to.
Oh, go ahead.
At least, I think that's a comment, not necessarily a question, but, so to back up, first of all, this is not D.R. Horton, this is 4-Star, we are publicly traded, on the New York Stock Exchange. D.R. Horton does own a majority percentage of 4-Star, but we are 2 separate companies, we both report separate earnings. Second, this was not, because homes weren't selling fast enough. So when we bought this land to develop into Fairwater, it actually had more units, total units, than what you have now at build out with build for rent. So initially we bought it was closer to 700 lots. Right now we're sitting at, I think, 630 to 650, so it has less density than what was originally anticipated. Part of that was to enlarge some reserve areas and some other things. And so this was, again, just like in a lot of communities, you can go to Johnson Development, you can go to a number of other developers, or it could just be one person, right? They could go through and say, hey, I'm gonna take half my community, do it single family. They could drop the lot size to all 40 foot, to all 35s. They could go to townhomes. They could put multifamily there, right? The Texas allows developers as an investment in that you can put, unless there are specific zoning requirements, which this property does not have. So we kept in line with the original plan for single family development. And to Frank's point, your leasing restrictions were not robust. We've had communities that investors have come in because we are not the ones selling homes, we're selling lots to home builders. We put in restrictions to the home builders and we say, look, you can't just sell to investors, right? These need to be selling to families, individuals, etc. But if they go sell 30 homes to an investor, we can't stop that, right? Well, that's happened over the last year or two because of if you don't have the right regulations or restrictions in place and the number of people moving here and mortgage rates, and there's been a lot of people coming in outside of Texas into Houston. And so that is happening in a lot of communities where you then don't have control. This is an organized way to put renting in one area. Is that a fair statement, Matt?
We'll express that the reason y'all did this is because of interest rates and interest rates and interest rates in the beginning of the meeting. That's what y'all said, was due to the fact that there is no ability to buy homes anymore, which means you can't build a home, sell it, so nobody's gonna buy it. So you did do this because your first initial plan was no longer working out. So he was right in saying that. So all of that was like mumble jumble, because now you're telling us 2 opposite things. And was it because of the interest rates and the inability to buy the homes, or was it because y'all were just like, well, sure, I can't do anything about it. Like, go ahead. That's how.
Yeah, because it wasn't posted up in the sales sales.
Let me talk about what these folks can do.
What,
As
nobody
somebody's,
else is,
okay,
like,
so.
why is nobody being informed? Is
Let me
all he
talk about
wants
what
to
these
know.
folks can do, because what folks generally do when they're about to exit a community is they go ahead and create a sub-declarant rights, and they de-annex the property, create a sub-declaration, give them definite rights over that community, and then that builder can come in and do whatever they want
I
with the
understand
property.
that, but what
and it
he
gets
said
handled.
was, why is nobody being informed?
And
That's the question.
And by the way,
Why
what they'll
is
do
nobody
on the
being
way
informed?
out is they'll enter into an access agreement
Why
with that.
is
Hold on.
nobody being informed of what is going on? That's the question.
I had friends that closed 2 weeks ago, and they said it was not in their disclosure, they had no idea until we talked to them and said, you know that yurt block they're working on, that's a build to rent site, they said that was not disclosed at closing, that was never told to us at any point in this process, and they closed 2 weeks ago.
I understand that. The
I would
fact of the
discourage
matter
anybody
is,
from building that.
these folks own the dirt.
Right, but they're saying
But
that
they're
they
leaving.
didn't warn.
No, I'm saying, these folks pay.
This doesn't happen overnight.
But
They-
also early on, Forestar said that they communicated.
No, they
with-
absolutely-
But Forestar said they communicated with the management company, that the management company was supposed to inform the residents. You said that at the beginning of the meeting. They did not communicate with us. So whose responsibility is it to communicate with us if you gave them permission to communicate that and they didn't? So who does that fall on? Is it the builder that we are buying our homes from, or is it the management company? Who is responsible for sharing that information? Because I also met someone 2 weeks ago that just moved into the community, said the exact same thing. They're still not, where I bought mine prior to this being December 2021, so I was in before it got approved, whatever. But we're meeting people that are just now moving in, that are still not informed, and it's like, at what point in the process are y'all gonna tell people? Because it's just not okay. I mean,
I
if
understand
it's.
this being the third meeting. Is this the third meeting that you guys have had about this?
Yes, well, the first one was on, well,
The first meeting, we weren't allowed to talk.
Correct.
The first
Okay,
meeting,
I understand that,
we
but
were
you're
not
talking about being
allowed to talk.
informed, right?
I'm talking about the new homeowners that are just now buying homes, they're still not even being told.
They're not
We
being
were
told.
blindsided on a Zoom call where we were not allowed to talk, period. They completely ignored the chat, wouldn't respond to anybody's questions. So then they had an in-person meeting that some of the people from the board wouldn't even show up in person, and so that meeting got crazy because people had the same concerns, but no, the problem is nobody can answer the question. Nobody will take responsibility for the communication, and I think that is where we collectively as homeowners are frustrated. Nobody will communicate, nobody will take ownership, nobody will say, even as a new homeowner coming into the community, nobody will tell them. Why is that happening and why won't somebody fix it? Like, we know now that's why we're here. But what about the new people that are coming in? Why don't they know?
What-
Should they be
what-
given an option
what about-
to decide whether or not they wanna live in a community that they own?
Absolutely, and these things are now part of the minutes of the HOA, right? So, I mean, like, the idea that the only information people can get is from the developer, I don't mean what about them, like, screw them, I mean, like, that's not what I said.
It basically is, I mean,
Oh,
if,
okay. So you wanna talk about basically?
No,
Here's what
I just
basically is.
want a
Wait,
direct
no,
answer,
you
and
don't.
that's the problem.
You don't want an answer. You don't want an answer. And there's like 5 questions, hold on, 5 questions. Stop, hold on.
I think getting.
I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, these folks own the land. You bought in a property when you didn't, and there's a land that's open to you, that's adjacent to you, that's not developed. The fact of the matter is, they're here talking to you as opposed to just developing the property or selling it to a sub-declarant who's gonna come in and put 35-foot lots or a multifamily, or, I don't know, whatever Harris County or Montgomery County allows, which is basically anything. You know, so the fact of the matter is, like, you're excoriating these folks for coming here on the third meeting and being open with you, and when they actually have no obligation to do that.
the time to be open is long since passed, that's what we're saying here.
They
It's,
have an obligation to inform me when I came in here in November to purchase, and nobody told me this is left to rent.
Hold on one second.
You were not informed about
I'm
it.
gonna talk to you. What would your decision have been different if you know?
to a man, yes.
Sir, why?
Because I don't wanna be in a place where there is a renter, and that's the reason I moved from Conroe to here.
Okay, when your restrictions had no rental provisions in the deed restrictions when you bought your home,
Everyone could rent.
and everyone in this entire community could rent, why did you not then say, I'm not gonna buy here when there's no rental restrictions whatsoever? I'm gonna go next door where you have to own your home for 12 months before you can rent.
There's
Why
probably
did that
a
not come up in
small
your discussion?
scattered amount of
I'm talking to him in the back who stood
What was
up.
that? What was that?
Your deed restrictions had no rental restrictions. Why did you buy in a community that had no rental restrictions if it was your top priority? It's the reason that you would have walked away from this community.
Oh yeah, we did ask the sales team there, what's coming up there, they said it's gonna be all a beautiful community like this. And today you are telling us, if somebody wants to reverse this, unless somebody has $20 million to reverse that. And this is kind of a joke, you come in here to tell us how beautiful it's going to be on the flowers you're gonna put on the flower bed. This is kind of, you guys taking us for jokes.
Right, what do you think, but these folks are gonna be buying homes, and they're gonna be renting homes, they're gonna be subject to more restrictions than when you bought in this community. They're gonna be subject to more restrictions than your neighbors on the left and right of you. They're gonna be subject to more restrictions than you. What
Have you
makes
ever
you, what
tried
makes
to
you?
evict someone? Do you know what kind of process that is? That is not an easy process.
I do.
It can
It
be,
seems like
it
you
can go on just as long, for months and months and months.
What makes you think these folks are gonna be evicted? What I don't understand is why do you think these folks are gonna be so terrible? Why are you prejudging
Do
them?
you want them in your neighborhood?
I absolutely do not care. As a matter of fact, I've seen, we've had build-to-rent sections pop up all over the place, and it's never led to the concerns that people have had. It's just all based on fear mongering.
There's a attorney meeting on Wednesday.
Yes, sir, you're going to very patiently. Yes, sir.
You want the forum set up?
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. There's a-
Okay.
173.
So see, that's what everything is about. We were telling us $500,000 homes. They didn't have $1,000, which would increase our values, and now we're getting this.
It's a lot different than one or two people.
Well, 11 and 12 are two separate sections, and a total of 173.
Copy
So,
right
yes.
there.
I agree.
Section
Yes.
that's the same size as 11.
7, I'd have to look at the land. 7 and 8 maybe.
So his question is, are you building on 40-foot lots?
Well, no, hold on, let's get this question answered, then we'll get to the next question.
Yeah, so section 7 is larger than section 11. And, in fact, section 7 was the largest section developed in the whole
So there's
community.
no section that's similar size to 11? Or
No,
11 and
it's,
12?
section 7 is bigger than section 11.
You take section 11 and 12 and add them together.
Well, I can
And then you
take
take section 9 and 4, does it come to the same number?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I can add a couple of, every section.
So let's do that, please, and then the follow-up question is gonna be how many in those two sections versus the 173 in the build-to-rent section?
So which two sections do you want to add together?
You tell me two sections that are the similar size, then tell me how many houses in those two, and then tell me how close that number comes to the
Are you
175.
trying to get a visual for like the
I'm trying to
size?
see if it's more houses or not, because I believe it is from the research we've done. But you're saying it isn't, but the
No,
lots
I'm
are
saying
smaller.
it's similar size, yeah, so if you took, say, section 7 and section 10, that would total, 155, 160 versus the 173.
So it was always planned to have X amount of lots there.
Yes.
Why is there 20 plus more now? Is it because these ones are smaller?
No, there's not, with the community has less lots overall now than it did when we bought the property and we planned it out. There's less lots.
So lots 11 and 12 always planned on having 173 houses?
I think it's fluctuated between 150 and 190, depending on the plan, depending on the grading. When we went through and designed it, at one point it had more than that, and we had some grading challenges because of the elevations and the topography, and that's where we lost lots, so it went down.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the property area we're talking about that's only going to be the build-to-rent strictly on the same side as the park? You guys aren't coming up or taking
It's
any
at
of
the
the other
very
land from the
panhandle, that top panhandle of the property.
Alright, but you're
And
not
it's-
crossing the street fairway at all?
No, it's
Okay.
literally completely, almost disconnected in that it turns and it comes up and it's that panhandle. So there's no cross access, if you will, from 11 and 12 into any other section. In fact, you have to come down the collector to get back out. So you'd have to enter another section to get into it, but it's segmented and separated from 1 through 10.
There's a trail that goes straight to the park.
Sir, in the BP shirt, I think it's BP, yes?
Yeah.
Bruce Petroleum, you've been very patient, yes, sir.
Yeah, so Was Forestar, when we first made this decision, were y'all able to make this decision because you owned the land, or because it was a board decision, or it was like a HOA, was that involved in it, or is it just?
The HOA has no involvement in the development side of things. As a matter of fact, chapter 209 of the property code expressly excludes development decisions from the HOA during the development period, which Forestar has a long time
Okay,
left.
so we would have never had any say in it no matter what? So
No.
it's 100%, okay.
No.
I was just curious.
Undeveloped land is subject to declarant rights. Declarants, that's the developer. The declarant has absolute authority over development, which is why they can actually de-annex property from an HOA, just take it out and then sell it to somebody else. And that's what happens. As they de-annex, they sell it to a sub-declarant, another developer that is not Forestar, that maybe can only handle 173 unit communities. Maybe they build on 30-foot lots, or they juice density in order to increase their investment. This happens, by the way, all the time. And then they give an access easement across your roads to this super dense property. Forestar elected not to do that. Instead, they're going this way, even though the market conditions, frankly, could have warranted Forestar getting rid of the property to a sub-declarant. Instead, they're developing it in accordance with the original plan. The only difference is there's a corporate owner for these lots, as opposed to it being 173 different owners. Yeah, I'm gonna get back to you, but there's a blonde woman in the back with glasses. She's second. She's on deck, to use baseball terminology. Are you wearing scrubs? I believe green scrubs, or no? You're just in a green shirt. Yes, ma'am. In the black hoodie. You've been very patient. Please go ahead.
So I have a question that relates to background checks. Is everyone that's going to be residing in these homes subject to the background check? Or is it just going to be the one person that's on the lease?
Everyone.
Okay. And then just to make a comment to your comment about engaged parents, that's not real, for the education, that's not really the case. And I think the stigma for us,
Which is not the case.
I don't think that every single person that moves into a school district to be in a better school district is necessarily an engaged parent that is gonna be involved and take care of the education of their kids. That's not necessarily the case. Two, I think there's a certain stigma that comes with rentals. I kind of want to speak for everyone when I say that there's certain sacrifice and a certain investment that we have in buying our homes. And I think just having 173 families that are moving into our community, renting a home, I'm not saying that, I don't want to come off saying that, we don't value the American dream and, everybody has the right to live in a beautiful home. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a certain issue in why we don't still live in rental homes. We want it better for our families and our kids. And so we are very worried about who is moving into our community and how much control that we have once they're there.
I understand that. The build to rent, the stigma though is generally, it's been associated with people that are renters on one-off basis, not a coordinated build to rent community. Because frankly, it's a new product type, so it hasn't really been around that long. But what we're seeing is that people like the fact that you're not just interacting with one person, you're interacting with a corporation. That corporation provides, a higher level of service to them as well. So it's not just the person that's hopping on Craigslist to find somebody. But I hear what you're saying, but it's interesting because I had a meeting earlier today in Waller County, and they were talking about development, and they wanted 80-foot lots. No one in this community, I don't believe, has an 80-foot lot. And so they are in Waller County are stigmatizing your homes, thinking that it's too small for their development. So I understand, but the fact of the matter is, you're always going to find someone that's going to bring some stigma. But but it hasn't been borne out in these corporate build-to-rent sections. But I do understand, I'm not trying to say that it's completely unjustified. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't have concerns. I understand you do, but I would also ask you to do some research. I know that someone wanted a market study. I would encourage you to look at these build-to-rent sections that are ran by corporations and see what they're doing to the communities. I think you'd find some interesting stuff out there. Ma'am, blonde in the building.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the gentleman in the white hat's been.
Are they being built on 40-foot lots?
Oh, white hat.
Order of questions.
All right. Yes, okay. All right, 1 second. I don't know about 40-foot lots. We'll start thinking about that question because it's now on deck.
It's been on my head for like 10 minutes. Can I at least be in line?
You're, to use a baseball term, you're in the hole, which I think is third up. But ma'am, you are at bat.
Okay. This probably affects us more than other people because our backyard faces the build-to-rent section. But I would maybe if there's a way they could just clean up that road a little bit more, just so you're aware of it, because it just seems like there's a lot of like mud on the road and there's a bunch of pallets sitting there. And the other day, like a truck, I could see them, so luckily I stopped and pulled over. But the way they were coming down, like if I would have been going, they probably would have hit me. So it's just kind of, there's no sidewalks, which is a whole other problem. My kid can't walk to the park. But, so we have to walk in the road to get to the sidewalk, and there's a lot more traffic back there. So it's just, if that's something that could be brought up.
Yeah, we'll follow up with contractor, that is us.
And not to be ugly to those people, but they're going too fast. I walk every single day, and I live on the back part of the property, and off of, Oak Crest Drive, and so, those trucks, they're speeding down that road. And there are children who sometimes don't look at those stop signs on their bikes, and one day there's gonna be an accident, because those vehicles are
hit
packed.
by a dump truck the other day trying to go to the park on his bike, because there's no crosswalk, there's no stop sign, there's no way for kids to safely get to the park, because there's trucks speeding and there's debris flying everywhere. And I called the county commissioners, and they said that's still held by you guys, so county cannot do anything about adding stop signs or crosswalks or anything. It's still owned by you guys, so you guys can do that.
We'll follow up the construction traffic on the area that we're active under construction. I'll also follow up with, the builders who are on the eastern side, cause that section is pretty active with new home construction. I'll follow up with them also. But we'll look into some measures that we can take on our side to slow the construction traffic down.
Cause I live on Curtis Creek, and so my son gets home from school and he just wants to go to the park. And we have to stand there for maybe 5 minutes sometimes, trying to look around the curves to make sure there's not a dump truck hauling or a construction worker in his personal vehicle hauling down. And I have to run across with my kids because they don't care if you're in the road or not.
We can reach out to the builders and the construction side of, I can tell you permanent traffic measures, that is not us, that is Montgomery County. We had asked about that last year, and they have to go through a TIA. So as it relates to adding speed bumps, as it relates to a number of those things, if they're saying it's us, I know for a fact.
I called the actual commissioner's office, my husband works at that office.
Okay.
So you haven't released the roads to them yet.
You guys can do whatever you want to it. Until
Yeah.
you guys hand over the roads to the county, they can't add any safety measures, they can't do anything. I literally talked to the secretary of the county commission.
And I work for Harris County Commissioner's Office.
Charlie Riley can't do anything, we're all talking to him, we're trying to get him to do what we need to get our kids safe, but the roads aren't.
Was that from where? Is that accurate, sir?
What's that?
They're saying they can't fix the roads or the curbs. It's the city's saying they can't do it, so they hand it over.
We can fix curbs, we can fix something that's broken, it's in the 1-year inspection
The curb
period,
in the
right
front
now.
entry
That
needs to
just
be
got
fixed all the time.
So
Rebar's been
that's
sitting out.
different, so hold on, there's a different topic about what needs to be repaired as opposed to traffic
Ask the
safety
question.
measures,
No.
which is a TIA.
Here's, so there's like 4 different questions, it's difficult to answer. Curbs absolutely can be fixed. Traffic measures, what I can tell you, is I was a city councilman down in the city of Katy, and people would ask me all the time, can we slow the traffic down? I live in a very nice subdivision there, and the answer is yes, you can. but it requires a traffic study, it requires the police department or the county to sign off on it, because the actual speed limits are determined by statute, and it's based on home density.
I think
And
what
so if you
we're all
wanna
trying to say is we know that, and we've called to try to have that done, or ask at what point can we have it done?
When
so
will
that
the
we can
roads be
get it?
turned over to the
And
county?
the only answer that we're receiving when we try to do that process is that they have not turned
Yes.
the roads over to the county.
Yes,
So
the
we're just
question-
wondering if we can
When
get
can
that
that
done.
So it goes into a maintenance
for.
period, which the roads are in now for 1 year. We have to then make sure everything is repaired. I just signed a
Okay.
contract last week for all of Fairwater to just fix all the curbs and everything. We're trying to get them out. We want the county to accept the roads, cause that way they'll release the bonds that they have us under. And so, once we have those repairs done, then we get the county back out
And then
there.
when-
If they
so after
find
the
anything
maintenance
else, we have
period
to fix
thing,
that. So
then-
we're in that process
Okay.
right now of just trying to.
So before that process is finalized, who has the say-so?
We have to stay to just what the engineering plans have. Once we have those done and the county accepts the roads.
Can't add extra stop signs or speed, you can't do anything?
No.
We have to wait till the county turns it over and then we can go.
Even
to
though
the
it's
county
private property,
and they can slow down the speed limit.
It's not private, it's
Who put the
public
stop
right
signs
of
in now?
way.
Huh?
It's public right of way. They did it as part of the build, but if we want additional, we have to go through the county commissioner's office to add stop signs or lower.
Yeah, the public right of way was done during the plating process before, well, this was just a glint in someone's eye. So it's public right of way, so the ability of the developer to impede the public right of way is zero. But apparently there's some weird limbo here, so.
It's not a limbo.
Yeah.
We're in the maintenance period.
I understand.
We're in the middle fixing the repairs.
But the fact of the
We
matter
wanna get
is,
to the county because I don't wanna hold on to them forever, and I would like the county to take over.
I understand what you're saying, and the limbo, what I mean by
So we
limbo,
are-
what I mean by limbo is there's a maintenance, they haven't accepted maintenance obligation, but the public right of way has already been dedicated.
You said that maintenance period is 1 year, right?
Correct. Sometimes it extends depending on how fast the county wants to get out and check.
Okay,
the
so
roads and
just,
everything.
so just to give the residents, to say about a year for the
We're-
maintenance,
yes.
and then we'll check back into it, is what we're
And
gonna
pretty
do.
much with Fairway, I think we're trying to get just all of the roads. Some of them have probably been in longer than a year, some are coming up on a year. We're in the process of just getting them all cleared out.
All right, we're at overtime now, but gentlemen in the white hat,
40-foot lots.
you have waited so patiently.
Are you building them on 40-foot lots?
40 and, so, yes, 40-foot lots. Correct.
Okay, I have a few questions. I will be quick, I promise. They should be pretty quick answers. Is the landscaping for the build to rent, is that factored into, who pays for that? Is that factored into our HOA or is that factored into their rent and all that?
It's in the rent.
Perfect. The floor plans that we were given, they do not have the pricing or the size of the homes on them. Is that something that we can get because those are not on there? It's just a picture of the floor plan? So what is the size range? What is the price range? How does that price compare to apartments in our area?
So we're probably a year away from building anything, so we will have, as in any rental community or apartment, we'll have a website, we'll have all the floor plans, it'll have all the rents.
What are the size of
It's
actual
all,
homes?
yes, that'll be on, everything will be on.
So y'all don't know based on this drawing what the, is it 1,500 square feet, is it 2,000, like what's
That one's
the?
1,200 square feet.
Wow.
What's the biggest?
But again, let me back
2,600,
up.
but again,
They still have to meet the guidelines.
Yeah.
So this is prototypes they have to meet the guidelines. So if the guidelines specify a minimum square footage, then certain
1,200
plans
is-
will qualify. It's no different than your builders. Castle Rock and DR Horton both have floor plans and elevations that have floor plans of square footage below what our minimum is. We either have to give them a variance or we don't allow them to build it.
I think the lowest for Castle Rock's like 1,800 something.
Again,
So
it's per
significantly
the
larger.
guidelines though. In DR Horton, both Castle Rock have elevations where they can build 3 or 4 of their plans out of one series, but then they can't build 2.
Okay.
So it just, those are, I
Originally,
haven't-
they said
I'm the
1,600
guy
to
that
2,000,
decides, and I haven't
now we're
decided yet
told
what to
that they
do.
don't. Last time we were told 1,600 to 2,000, but now y'all are saying that we don't need price range. So we're given mixed information, which I think is also part of the frustration. But I'm trying to get through this, I have 2 more
I
questions.
don't know who you're talking to, this is the guy that makes the decision, so.
Well, I'm just saying.
So talk to this guy,
Okay, but
this guy doesn't
please,
know.
please stop being so condescending to
I'm not
us
being
because we are
condescending.
basing our past information that we've.
Ma'am, I'm not being condescending. I said
You
last
are being
question, you just asked 6
condescending.
questions.
Okay, what constitutes a failed background check? So you said that people have to pass a background check. What constitutes a failed background check?
I am not in the property management world, but, felony, I mean, is probably one of them. I don't, I'd hate to give you I'd hate to give you information, because you're gonna.
Don't give the
I'm not gonna give you.
I was gonna say,
it's-
can't answer, got it.
I can't answer, yeah, I don't.
And what
It
is the
depends on what
market?
HUD says. It's
Yeah.
all
Okay,
regulated, it's all regulated by the federal government. Oh, who's being condescending now?
Whoa, spicy
Yeah, I'm just
nugget.
saying.
Hold
Hang
on.
on,
All
okay,
right.
what is the
Your
market
40th
special
question,
for
please.
the build to rent section? Who are you marketing to? What is gonna make up, you said you're gonna try to get people in quickly, so what is the marketing plan for the build to rent section?
So it will be marketed just like any other, any other apartment community or built to rent community, or, you'll be able to go on any of the Zillow, Rent.com, any of those websites.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right, there are 2 more questions. Ma'am in the back, and then ma'am in front of her with a husband in a blue shirt, and you're wearing a floral shirt. Ma'am in the back in the blue, sweater.
Your first name is Matt. Would you mind repeating your last name, please? And would you tell me who hired you to be here today, please?
Who hired me? Oh, him.
Oh, my name's Frank. There are 2 Matts up here, but we thought 3 would be a little overkill.
That's what I was thinking. And your,
So my name's Frank
sorry, Frank? And your
Yes.
last name?
Carroll. It's like Christmas Carol, both 2 R's and 2 L's.
Okay.
And who hired me? My law firm Winstead.
Winstead?
Winstead,
Who asked you to be here, I think is what she asked.
4-star asked me to be here.
Okay, thank you.
And if there's any, if you didn't like the program, if you have any snide remarks, if you just didn't like the gray choice of color, direct all concerns to me, because these folks had nothing to do with it. All right, ma'am in the floral shirt, yes,
I just have a request.
bring us home.
Coming down 2854, coming like from Kroger off of 105, it is so dark trying to make that left turn. Maybe it's my age.
No, it's dark. It's dark.
Really
There's
dark.
no.
All the trees are lit down and they're very pretty, but if we could get some kind of light. I mean, we have the left turn lane or the right turn lane coming the opposite direction, but when you're making that left turn, it's really hard, and then there's that ditch and everything there, so I don't know. I'm not a great night driver, but it would be really nice.
Matt from
Yeah,
4-star?
we'll take a look at that.
It's just dark, like not the main entrance, the other entrance,
Yeah.
that's the one I.
All right, well, hey, thank you all.
Not the main entrance.